The black sedan slowed as it turned into a narrow street the millionaire had never driven down before. The buildings leaned toward each other like tired old men, their paint blistered by sun and neglect. He checked the address again, certain there had been a mistake. This couldn't be where his daughter lived. She had grown up in a house with marble floors, a garden trimmed by hired hands, and a future mapped out by privilege. Yet the driver stopped, and the truth waited in silence. He climbed the stairs alone, each step echoing too loudly in the stairwell. The air smelled of damp concrete and old cooking oil. At the third floor, he paused in front of a door with a crooked number taped to it. His hand hovered before knocking, uncertainty tightening his chest. Finally, he pushed the door open. Inside, the apartment was almost empty. A mattress lay on the floor, its blanket thin and frayed. Near the window stood a small table with one chair and nothing else. The refrigerator hummed weakly, its surface covered in rust spots. Then he saw her. His daughter was crouched near the sink, shoulders hunched, hair loosely tied back as if even a proper mirror had become a luxury. In her hands was an open can. She ate quickly, desperately, using a plastic spoon. The smell reached him instantly, sharp and metallic. Dog food. His breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, the room spun. She hadn't noticed him yet. She ate like someone racing against hunger, against shame, against time itself. This wasn't a moment of rebellion or carelessness, it was survival. His mind flashed with memories. Her laughing at the dinner table, pushing vegetables aside, complaining about desserts not being sweet enough. The contrast was unbearable. A small sound escaped him, half a gasp, half a sob. She froze, then slowly turned her head. Their eyes met. The spoon slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. Her face drained of color as recognition set in. In that instant, his wealth, his power, his pride meant nothing. All he could see was his child, starving in silence, and the crushing realization that he had been rich enough to prevent this, yet absent enough to allow it. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. The room seemed to hold its breath. The millionaire stood frozen near the door, his polished shoes stark against the stained floor, his presence too large for the small, worn space. His daughter pressed herself back against the cabinet, as if caught committing a crime. Her hands trembled, and she quickly wiped her mouth with the back of her sleeve, eyes fixed on the ground. I can explain," she whispered, though her voice lacked confidence. Shame wrapped around every syllable. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. His throat burned, tight with emotions he had spent a lifetime controlling. This wasn't a boardroom problem he could solve with money or authority. This was raw, fragile, and terrifyingly human. Finally, he managed her name, soft, broken, almost unfamiliar on his tongue. She flinched at the sound. "You shouldn't be here," she said quickly, standing up as if height could restore dignity. "I'm fine. I didn't ask you to come." He looked around then, really looked. The bare walls, the single light bulb flickering overhead, the emptiness that screamed louder than any accusation. "Fine," he repeated quietly. "This is fine." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I didn't want your money," she said, lifting her chin. "Not after what we said to each other. I wanted to prove I could live without it. Without you." The words struck him harder than anger ever could. He stepped forward, then stopped, unsure if he still had the right. "Why didn't you call?" he asked. "Why didn't you tell me you were struggling?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Because pride doesn't disappear just because hunger shows up. Because every time I picked up the phone, I remembered how you looked at me that night, like I was a disappointment." Her voice cracked. "I told myself this was better than begging." The silence returned, heavier now, filled with everything they had never said. He realized then that his tailored suit, his watch worth more than this apartment, didn't make him powerful here. It made him painfully out of place. "I thought you'd come back," he admitted, barely above a whisper. "I thought you'd need me." She met his eyes, tears finally spilling over. "I needed you to believe me," she said. "Not rescue me." In that moment, the distance between them wasn't measured in years or miles, but in broken trust, quietly waiting to be repaired. She sank onto the edge of the mattress, exhaustion finally overtaking her defiance. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves were listening. For a long moment, she stared at the floor, tracing invisible lines in the dust with her bare foot. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier, but heavier. "There's something you never let me finish telling you," she said quietly. He stiffened. That night came rushing back. The raised voices, the slammed door, his certainty that he was right. "I remember," he replied, though his tone suggested he wished he didn't. She took a slow breath. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to protect you." His brow furrowed. She explained how she had stumbled across documents while visiting his office years ago, emails, accounts, transfers that didn't make sense. His business partner, the man he trusted like a brother, had been moving money through shell companies, quietly tying everything to his name. When she confronted the partner, he laughed it off. When she warned her father, he dismissed her fears as imagination, as jealousy, as ignorance. "You told me I didn't understand your world," she said, her voice trembling now. "That I was trying to sabotage your success." The words echoed in his mind. He remembered saying them. He remembered the look on her face then, hurt, but determined. At the time, he had seen rebellion. Now, he saw fear. "So I left," she continued. "If something happened, if everything collapsed, I didn't want to be close enough to drag you down with me. I thought if I disappeared, you'd be safer." His chest tightened painfully. Memories rearranged themselves against his will. The sudden investigation. The late-night calls from lawyers. The partner's abrupt arrest. He had told himself it was luck, good legal advice, sharp instincts. "Never her." "You knew," he whispered. She nodded. "I paid the price for knowing too much and being believed too little." The weight of it crushed him. His success, his freedom, his untouched reputation, all of it had been preserved by her silence and suffering. While he dined in luxury, she learned how hunger sounded in an empty room. The truth didn't just break his heart, it exposed it, leaving no place for pride to hide. "I failed you," he said at last, voice shaking. "In every way that mattered." She looked up then, eyes glossy but calm. "I didn't want you to fail," she replied softly. "I just wanted you to listen." The confession left the room unbearably quiet. The millionaire stood there, shoulders slumped, no longer the powerful figure who commanded rooms with a glance. Slowly, as if afraid she might disappear again, he knelt in front of his daughter. The cold floor pressed through his trousers, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, he met her at eye level. "I'm sorry," he said, the words raw and unpolished. Not the kind of sorry that buys things or fixes problems. "I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I chose my pride over my child." She hesitated, then broke. Years of restraint collapsed as she covered her face, sobbing quietly. He reached out, then paused, waiting for permission. When she didn't pull away, he wrapped his arms around her, holding her the way he had when she was small and storms used to frighten her. She clung to him, thin arms trembling, and he felt how fragile she had become. The realization cut deeper than any loss of money ever could. "I don't need everything to be perfect," she said between breaths. "I just don't want to be alone anymore." "You won't be," he promised, his voice steady with resolve. "Not again." They left the apartment together as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows down the stairwell. He locked the door behind them, not as an ending, but as a chapter closed. Outside, the city buzzed with life, indifferent yet full of possibility. He took off his expensive coat and draped it over her shoulders when he noticed her shiver. Instead of a grand restaurant, he stopped at a small roadside cafe. Plastic chairs, simple food. They ate slowly, sharing quiet glances and fragile smiles. No speeches, no wealth on display, just presence. That night, he understood redemption wasn't about grand gestures or public apologies. It was about showing up, listening, and staying, day after day. And as they walked side by side into the evening, he knew rebuilding would take time. But for the first time, they were walking the same path, together.